So for the last 10 or 15 minutes or so, I just wondered if we had quick questions and hopefully quick answers. Anything that we haven't managed to speak about or you'd like to know a little bit more about. Preferably, like I said, things that are quick for any of the people who have given talks today. I don't know if we want people at the front or whether we just want to sit there. Either's fine. We can just talk here. But if anyone has a question for any of the panelists today or something that they'd like to know a little bit more about, then go for it.
This is my first conference like this, and I have to say that I'm amazed to meet such smart philosophers who are so good communicators, because I haven't encountered them in my own country to the extent that I've encountered them here.
Thank you. That's a compliment to all of the.
Just tell us where you come from.
Finland.
Don't be shy. Yeah.
Well, I want to come back to something that Bob said and pose a question to Tim and Richard. And Bob talked about the existence of extraterrestrial intelligences, and it's about related to the background knowledge that goes into the Bayesian argument for the resurrection of Jesus. So, if you take a look at the Drake equation that's used to evaluate the prevalence of intelligent life in the universe, then you can put in numbers there which give us like a billion different intelligent civilizations in the universe, or you can get 10 billion or 100 billion. And now, well, of course you can question those numbers, but let's suppose that there's 100 billion civilizations in the cosmos, and one in 10 at least is a sinful civilization and which experiences suffering and needs salvation. So, and Richard has given us a good argument why God would want to somehow interact with that suffering and intervene and become incarnate. But let's suppose that the incarnation can only happen once. Then we still have only like 1 in 100,000 probability that it will happen on Earth. So do you think something like this is a relevant consideration to think in that argument? I personally think there's several different ways you could try to answer that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear what you guys think.
The first thing I want to say is, didn't they burn Giordano Bruno in 1600 for talking about whether other stars had planets which had civilizations whose salvation had nothing to do with the death of Jesus Christ? This is truly a place where angels fear to tread. I'm skeptical of our ability to give estimates for the terms in the Drake equation that would yield any very helpful kind of estimate of the number of extraterrestrial civilizations. I'm inclined, I am not a microbiologist, but from my own study of the conditions necessary for even the possible arising of carbon-based life, from really some of the very unique properties of carbon and some other issues, I'm very, very skeptical that we can assign very high numbers even when we've got hundreds of billions of opportunities for this to arise. So I worry a lot about that. Of course, if we are classical theists, we all believe in extraterrestrial intelligence because we believe in angels, just not the kind that get factored into the Drake equation. As to what God, you said hypothetically, so now I'll take you seriously after having sort of cringed a little from it. Now let's work on your terms.
Well, I share your troubles with making a
right, but suppose there were, right? We do thought experiments all the time, and since 1277, doing thought experiments about these things has been a great and protected enterprise. So let's think about the possibility that there are other, we don't have to put a number on it, other civilizations far distant, and that they suffer or in some sense experience this kind of epistemic distance from God that causes these sorts of problems. So I guess I want to walk a while with Richard and say, God is good. And whatever goodness requires, God will do. We're working at a level of hypothesis that's so vague here that it's not clear exactly what they're undergoing. It might even be very difficult for us to conceive what beings in some measure quite different from ourselves would undergo. I mean, I have a hard time even thinking of what it's like to be a bat. So of course it's very difficult to go to something I know even less about and that is presumably even more wildly different from me. But God is good. What goodness requires, goodness will do. Does that make sense? I mean, and that's really as far as I feel comfortable going. But Richard probably
Well,
wants to go
on
further.
the more
so-
detailed things, I don't see why at first you suppose incarnation can only happen once. The medievals discussed this, and some people said it could, and some people said it couldn't.
Yeah.
I can't see any slightest reason why it can't happen again in a different civilization. But secondly, maybe the death of Christ avails for them, and it's news we can take to them when we learn about them. It rather depends whether you classify them as humans. If you classify them as humans, then it does. If you assume that to be a human you have to be descended from the same people as we are descended from, then of course that's not possible, and you need a second incarnation. But atonement, then the third point, of course, is that atonement is only necessary if humans have sinned. And we need to know a lot more about that civilization before we can make a judgment. I mean, it's pretty obvious around here that there's a lot of natural inclination to do wrong and a lot of actual wrongdoing, but that wouldn't necessarily be the case at all. I mean, maybe they're all naturally good over there. They've got different genes from us or something like that. So there's all sorts of possibilities here. And as regards to Drake, well, we all know that was very speculative, but one might think that the failure of SETI to find anything over the past 50 years counted against those particular figures. I'm not saying it rules out life on other planets, but it does suggest it's rather less frequent than the Drake equation.
Richard has said it very clearly. You have those three options that Richard just mentioned, and I think the only thing I would add to it is to say there is so much written about this actually in the science and theology area. You know, through the 19th century, the plurality of worlds comes up a lot. So this is not a new issue. I mean, it's actually a very old issue. You know, Bruno, yes.
But also Thomas Chalmers and others, right?
Many others. So there are lots of there's actually lots of resources. And so I thought that was what you were going to say. So I will say it.
Let me say we're all fortunate because I don't have my PowerPoint here because I just gave 3 hours of lectures on this on a forthcoming book. I'll spare you the 3 hours.
But will you send us a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's interesting to think about this question of the redemption of alien species. But let's hope that let's just say maybe their natural theology is more robust and more obvious than natural theology is here, something of that nature. So.
Time, and we're out of here. Is that what you're saying, John?
John,
Yes. Go wrong. All right, thank you all.
Yes, so thank you everyone who's come. I'd like to thank everyone who's helped put this on, the Ian Ramsey Centre, Father Andrew Clinton, the John Templeton Foundation, and all our distinguished speakers today. I hope you found it useful. If you want more resources on this, or my appendices on my slides, which have a lot of resources and references for this, do get in touch with me. I'll be happy to send them along. If you don't know my email or you don't know me, search Calum Miller Oxford in Google and then pick the one who isn't the head of the School of Government. And you should be able to find it. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much for organising it.